Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at a very budget scope, an offering from Pinty Optics. It's a 2.5-10x40 second focal plane scope with a laser, and I like to call it the worst scope I've ever seen. So let's check it out. So to start with, Pinty did send this to me, and I was reluctant to take it on. I told them in the email back to them that I've had 2 or 3 other Pinty optics that they have sent me in the past, in the last handful of years, and none of them were any good, and this thing has not been any different. Let's get the good part out of the way. It costs almost nothing, and it did survive, surprisingly enough, the drop test. I did have the video camera on for the drop test, but it was corrupted and I no longer have it. But why would I make up something good to say about a scope? I have nothing else good to say. Let's start with the literature that came with it. That doesn't even belong to this scope. Nothing about this literature that came with the scope is correct for this scope. The picture isn't the same. It doesn't have all the same features on it. Nothing is correct about this literature for this scope. That's first and foremost. As far as the literature does go, it doesn't offer any torque specs for mounting the scope. It tells you how to zero the scope, sort of. And then it gives you a bunch of information here about other scopes they offer, as far as like field of view, weight, length, eye relief, and all of that, except for it doesn't mention this scope at all. So I have almost no specs for you. I could measure it, but you can see that it's just a shade longer than the overall upper receiver. It's not very heavy because I don't think it's made very well. It has very little things in it to make it heavy. So it has a laser on it that doesn't work. The laser will turn on and sometimes flickers. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the laser will turn on and sometimes flickers, but you can't see it in anything other than really low light. If you're in your living room, sure, it'll shine on the wall and you can play with your cats with it, but on a target at any sort of reasonable range, it just doesn't work well. It is adjustable as far as windage and elevation with 2 screws right here, and they do supply the little Allen wrench for it, but again, I can't see it on the target, so it really doesn't matter how it adjusts. It has brightness settings for the reticle, and I'll get into the reticle here in a second, of 1 through 5 for red and green. Now, these are the type of scopes that give red and green a bad name. Red and green used to be something that was just on the junkiest scopes you could find. There are other companies, other good budget companies, that have been coming out with scopes and red dots and green dots and things like that, that are of higher quality than we have been used to seeing for the last, say, 20 or 30 years. But this is one of those scopes that definitely gives the red and green illumination a bad name. During any sort of daylight, even twilight, I can barely see the coloration of the reticle. However, what it does a phenomenal job at is lighting up the inside tube of the scope. So there's a massive glare off the walls of the scope rather than the reticle being lit up. And here are some pictures of red and green, and I'm sure you're going to say that I don't have it on because you can't see it, but no, that is on full power. The reticle itself is not a horrible reticle. The eye relief is atrocious, but the reticle itself is not a horrible reticle. That is, if you can get around the entire optic being fisheyed. And I don't mean just around the edge like some crappier scopes. I mean the entire image is wobbly. the entire image is wobbly. Now for eye relief at 2.5, that is good. That is good, and I get a bunch of black. So there's about an inch of play in the eye relief at 2.5. At 10, I almost have to put my eye against it, and if I move even a degree off center, the optic starts going black. So the eye relief is fucking horrible with this thing. Now let's get into the mechanics of it. So here is the zoom ring that feels like it has either stones in it or like it's aluminum to aluminum or something like that. Well, on an optic of any sort of reasonable quality, that feels like it has an O-ring that it's gliding on. This feels like it has metal that it's gliding on. So I don't know what's inside there. The diopter adjustment is reasonably smooth though. The knob up here is for parallax. So it goes 1 through 5 as if somebody's going to shoot 500 yards with this. Now I want to show you something. I don't know how well you can see this, but the knob, not only does the knob feel like a 3-year-old probably put it together, but because it's so gritty and grimy, but the knob goes beyond the parallax settings. So it goes under 0 and over 5, almost as if it's broken. So that's impressive. The elevation is up here in the top with this little cap. And there's the elevation knob that you can turn with a flathead screwdriver or by your fingers. And it's protected, sort of. And you put that back on. And then, amazingly enough, this other side is a completely different style cap. A completely different style cap. And it has 0 to 11 on it with some lines. I'm not even bothering to show close-up stuff for this, but with some lines. But it doesn't tell you left or right. It doesn't give you any information about which way is which. Now mounting, it comes with the built-in mount here with these like thumb screws that I don't know how I would torque those, but I just kind of put them down as tight as I could. Matter of fact, they tightened up just a little bit more now with my fingers, which is again impressive. And then back to the scope itself. Something I forgot to mention is light transmission, while wobbly, isn't horrible. Color transmission is pretty atrocious. Now I know some people will call this a budget, high value optic. It's trash. This is not something I would suggest people put on anything other than their child's .22 single shot rifle. It has really 0 upsides. It's not enjoyable to shoot. It doesn't appear to be made well. The pieces and parts that you move and all that feel like crap. The laser flickers. The illumination barely works. And the information that came with it in that sheet isn't even for this scope. So that is 3 for 3 or 4 for 4, I can't remember how many now, Pinty products that not only can I not suggest, but emphatically warn to stay away from. Don't spend your money with this. Don't spend your money on Pinty optics. I'm a budget optic guy. I certainly am a budget optic guy. I like plenty of budget optics out there. This is horrible. So let's give this thing the death that it so much deserves. That wasn't good enough. There we go. that is about all the more ammo I'm willing to waste on this piece of shit for this review. All right, I'd like to thank Pinty for sending that pile of trash out to me. I told them that I didn't like the first products they sent me, and this one is just, it's no different. They don't make a good product. So at least I got to show it again. At least I got to, you know, test another one, and you know, there's just no question about it that it's no good. It's too bad. I wish there was more budget, you know, reasonably quality budget optics out there. There's a handful of companies. Monstrum's one of them. They make some really good budget priced optics. There's just companies like Fiachi, Pinty, some of these no-name brands on Amazon where you see the same scope over and over again, but it's a different manufacturer, you know, a different company. I'm sorry, guys. It's just I am not a gear snob by any stretch of the imagination, but those are horrible. They're just all horrible. Spend a little bit more money and get something that is considerably better. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to see more videos from me, hit like, share, subscribe, and that notification bell. When you're hitting that notification bell, hit all notifications. That way you can get notifications for all the videos that I come out with. If you want to support the channel further than that, there is Ko-Fi, which is sort of like a Patreon, and you can also join as a member of the channel, which gets you previews of upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.